All right, church fam, welcome into this edition of Midweek. Pastor Owen here with you, welcoming you in once again. It's October 7th. We are in the middle of a sermon series called The Way of the Apprentice, and we want to dig further into that topic about what it means to be an apprentice of Jesus. But before we do that, it occurs to me that you may be brand new, you may not know who we are or what this is about. So Heist Church, we're a church out in Prescott, Arizona. If you haven't said hello to us yet, now is a great time. If you're watching this live, jump in the chat and say hello. You can also hit that subscribe button. And when you do, that'll help you stay connected with us as we continue to drop content, sermons, other encouraging videos throughout the weeks and ahead. So do that. Say hello if you're brand new. You can always email us too. Just say hello@heightschurch.com. We'd love to connect with you and learn more about your story, who you are, where you're coming from, and how we can help you find Jesus and follow Jesus. So back to this topic we're on. The word that we use for it, very common language, is discipleship. But we have this feeling like, sadly, discipleship's kind of a worn out word. Everybody has a different idea of what it means. And so we're trying to actually dig into the meaning of that word. When we say being a disciple of Jesus, we're talking about being his apprentice, which has this idea of this, it's that old school mentality, like you learn a trade from someone who knows it better than you. And so when we're looking at being an apprentice of Jesus, it's this idea of, we look at Jesus and we say, like, who does he love? How does he love? How does he live? Then we turn the mirror to ourselves and we go, how do we love? How do we live? And then we look for ways to close that gap, to have a heart, have a life that mirrors the life of Jesus. So that's kind of the context for what we're all talking about. This Sunday, Pastor John brought us a message, an episode in the life of Jesus that helps us understand his heart and understand how he loves. And so I'm going to bring John in here to help us kind of unpack it a little further. And along with John, we have a special guest that is brand new to Midweek. So here we go. Here she is. We got John and we got Sarah B. Welcome in, Sarah B. Okay, so
Welcome.
I took something to heart, John, a couple weeks back. Last time we were on here together, you said, John's so scared right now. I love it.
Oh,
You said we need like some kind of walk-up, like sound effects to greet new people. And then you went on to make fun of my musical ability. So I have something here. But it's not my electric kazoo. I brought the ukulele. There's nothing like a big man carrying a small guitar. Just make you feel good. So Sarah, this is for you. I have a little walk-up music for you. Ready? There's a little sound.
Perfect.
This is, in the business, we call it a drop. So here's the Sarah drop. Ready? Here we go.
I love it. I love it.
Welcome to Midweek.
It was good. It was catchy. Love it.
John is now gonna go hide under whatever's behind him in his garage out there.
I feel like that's right up with ba-da-bop.
Exactly. So Sarah, let's try to not be the only thing people know about you, is you now have official walk-up ukulele music on Midweek.
I feel so special that even happened. So
You are the first person that's ever had walk-up music.
I'm glad I championed the way.
I'm gonna come out and say I love Sarah B. You are great, and it's such a gift to have you as part of our team. I'd love for people to get to know you a little bit better. So let's talk about your competitive nature first.
Oh man, what do you want to know about it?
How bad?
What she's asking right now is, how does she win with that question?
Yeah, see, there it is. Already trying to win this interview. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, I am a very competitive person. Yes, you're correct. I just love winning. Like I can take a loss. I think it's really important to be able to take losses when you love winning, because if not, you're never gonna. It's just understanding how to lose is great. That's almost a way to win. But yeah, I like beating the other team. I think it's even more of a challenge to like work as a team together and beat the other team, because it's like so many different individuals, and then once that happens, there's just like complete satisfaction. I love it. So
yeah, and that team part of yourself, I know that's a big part of who you are. talk a little bit about the team that you take care of here at Heights. Who are you? What role do you fill? Who you taking care of?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah B. I work in kids ministry, and I lead the 4th and 5th grade ministry. That's been pretty new as of this year. I used to lead the 5th and 6th grade ministry, but now I have even smaller little ones that I'm kind of guiding, hopefully really well in the ways of the Lord. But yeah, it's been really cool to just be able to get to know each and individual person a part of 4th and 5th grade. It's been awesome. John, your daughter is in 4th or 5th grade. I forgot which one.
4th, and she loves you.
I love her. I feel like she's a 5th grader about to sprout into a 6th grader, honestly, which is probably something you don't even want to hear. But yeah, it's just been really fun to just get to know them, and I challenge them in ways where they're like, wait, is it okay for me to like be like this in front of friends? And so it's been fun to kind of get that out of their characters. And I work with a team of people, new serve team of people, which has been incredible. They're all just willing to be present, be there, love on the kids. And so it's been fantastic.
So what is a little known challenge of working with that age group? I think a lot of people wouldn't understand what all that goes into it,
I think a challenge would be figuring out creative ways to keep them engaged or to capture their attention. I think for me, that's the biggest challenge, because in my head, I'm like, oh, of course they're paying attention, but sometimes they're not. And so I think that's maybe the most challenging thing for me in communicating with them. But other than that, like, yeah, I think that's the big part of it. So.
Yeah, and you've been doing amazing. Like watching Bailey, first of all, you're doing it. It started out before we were even gathering on the weekends on Zoom with a bunch of girls you don't know. And then Bailey got done after, I think it was the second time. And I was like, so what do you think? She goes, I really, really like it. And I think, just speaking of challenges and overcoming them, I think just even the fact that, I watch them do distance learning. And so I watch all these kids kind of like, when they're on there, and yet to watch her, like you've done such a good job engaging them. And so well done. And thank you for pouring yourself out.
Thank you. Yeah, that was something where I thought that was going to be very challenging. And so I kind of walked in and I was like, okay, God, like, I have no idea what this is going to look like. You just put me in the place where you need me to be. So it's been awesome to just cultivate this like time on Zoom, which is weird because they are distance learning the whole day long. And so it's been really cool to just have time online that is fun.
Yeah.
Without being in proximity with each other. Like it's been strange and the coolest thing ever because it came totally unexpected to me. So yeah.
Sarah, if you've got kids saying they are having fun on Zoom, you do something right, my friend, because I got my first grade and he hates it. 10 minutes in, he's hanging off his chair, hanging over the top of his chair, crawling around on the ground under his chair. He's hating it. So you've got people, little people that love being online with you. That says a lot right there. Okay, so if we had
let me do this plug. Ready?
Yeah, here we do it.
So if you got a 4th or a 5th grader and you're watching this, you need to get in touch with Sarah, and they're not connected yet. You've got to get in touch with Sarah and get your kids connected because you will not regret it.
Well, that's what I was about to ask is, Sarah, how do people, you got a parent, you got a grandparent that has a little that need to connect with you, 3rd, 4th grade, what's the best way to do that?
Honestly, just emailing me, sarah@heightschurch.com is the best way. All of the emails filter through this, so it's not like I'm not going to miss it. So if you email me, hey, my name is Joan. I have a 4th and 5th grader who I'd love to get connected. That's honestly the best way. And yeah, I would probably call you if you leave your phone number too. So yeah, that's the best way. I had a few parents connect with me this past week, and it's honestly been so cool to just see the parents' desire to for their kid to like get plugged in, because that like shows that like the fourth and fifth grader has like community and a backing behind that and an encourager to keep pushing them forward. So it's been cool.
Yeah, beautiful. You research.
It's fun watching them go from Zoom to then, I believe Bailey met you, was it this Sunday or last Sunday?
This Sunday.
Yeah. And she was super excited. So
yeah.
It's fun to watch that happen.
Yeah, it was amazing. I felt like a total goofball because I saw your wife and I saw Bailey and her friend who do life group online. And I did this weird dance. Oh, it was so strange. And they like just knew like, that's Sarah. And I was like, yep. That's me.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do the kids tell you that you look taller and thinner in real life? That's what I get. So that's what I had. People that, see us on MidWeek, morning coffee, had somebody I'd never met before, like has only been going to church online, which is so great. We've had so many people like that. It's beyond fun to meet these people. It's like you know them without having met them before. It's crazy. But yeah, I had one lady, I think she meant well. She comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, you Pastor Owen?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, you look much taller and thinner in person." I was like, thank you.
Thank you. I definitely have gotten oh, you're not 45. I'm like, you're right. I'm not 45. No, you're like my sister's age. Maybe.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
That's nice. It's nice to be, better than people imagine in person. So
yeah, it's a little confidence boost. Maybe if you take it that way.
So Sarah, part of why you're in this conversation today is so much of what you do is that discipling, apprenticing these young people who are just trying to figure out what it means to live in this world and look like Jesus, and help parents figure that out too. So you're a perfect person as we have this conversation coming out of Sunday, talking about the way of the apprentice, and being an apprentice of Jesus. So I'm wondering, John, this was your message this Sunday. Super great. It was super meaningful to have communion in the middle of this story from Jesus' life on earth about feeding thousands of people with 5 loaves and 2 fish, right? It's kind of a well-known story. So I feel like we don't need to recap the story. So my question, I guess, to jump into it is really, because we are Jesus apprentices, right? We're trying to see Jesus' heart, how Jesus carried himself, so we can mirror that. So what do you see we learn from about Jesus rather, in this whole episode of feeding the 5,000?
That's a super good question. I think like when you put the story into context of the disciples being excited about ministry, but also tired. And, it's specific. And we didn't get into it this weekend, but it specifically says they haven't even had time to eat. And I think it's fascinating that that's the motivation for Jesus to go, hey, let's get away and let's catch some rest together. To then just have those plans completely blown up by this crowd of people with, if the commentaries are accurate of who these people were, the agenda is way different. And, they're not showing up going, hey, we're all for the kingdom and we're all for the kingdom that you're presenting. There's a lot of mixed messages that they're showing up for. There's the, hey, we love you because of the healing. And then there's the, hey, actually, we just want you to kick Rome out and bring back our kingdom and establish Israel. And so I think it's really interesting that the context of being tired and exhausted and other people's agendas being pushed. And yet in the midst of that, I think one of the clearest things we see from Jesus is this compassion. And what got me with the the compassion word, we didn't get into it much on the weekend. We touched on it. But what hit me with the compassion word is that it's from the inside out. And so it's this well that's already there. And it's when whatever is external actually hits this deep-seated emotion inside that then the language and the explanations that I caught up with is then you're compelled to action. You're compelled to step in on behalf of another human being and do something.
Mm.
And I think from, as an apprentice, like if there's ever a climate that we can relate with, everybody's too busy. COVID slowed us down and most people have just fired right back up. And, and I think some of that we're more tired than we were before COVID, simply because before COVID we had stamina for it. And now we're trying to gain the stamina back that we had before. I think we're, depends on who you run into. I don't know for you guys, but I go to the grocery store and I could meet people that align with agendas or people that, man, they are 100% on selling me their agenda. And I mean, that's the grocery store, and I think it's interesting if there's ever a time we can relate to what they were feeling and the desire to the invitation of Jesus to come and rest. And then in the midst of that, like just this hunger, tiredness, longing for something different, being told you should be different. And in the midst of that, watching Jesus's response and going, gosh, how do we develop this deep inner, and that's the apprenticeship thing, right? Like, how do we truly take what Jesus had? Where did that compassion come from? How was it built in him to where from the inside out? And I think he hits on that, other spots where he talks about the life from the inside, that, and he's specifically pointing fingers at the Pharisees going, hey, you guys, you clean the outside of the cup, but the inside's just a disaster, and I think developing that inner life is a huge part of apprenticeship. And then beyond that, sorry, I know it's a little more than what you asked for, but then the response is the action coming out is grace. Like when he should have pushed him away and the disciples are asking him to push him away, he draws them near. When it takes more effort to feed them than it would to be like, too bad, you guys should have brought food, he leans in and actually like meets their needs. He takes time to see their needs, but he also like draws them near, and the compassion wells up to where he meets those needs. So
that's amazing. I think that our perception of how Jesus responded to people is so key for us, right? I mean, that's kind of takes a second to untangle it, but seeing how we think Jesus looked at people and responded is then what I find myself, I find myself mirroring that. And I think I forget Jesus had different audiences. So like in my mind, I kind of have this picture of Jesus that's very generic. Like I don't have like a story to point to exactly. I just have this, well, Jesus was this way. And then I lead with that. And so if I forget, like there's a crowd of people that he's responding to. He also has other times he's responding to the Pharisees, and he comes out with strong words to confront them. And so depending on my perception of Jesus, is he someone that comes out with strong words and confronts people? Or is he someone that's moved to compassion by the needs of people? Like how I think Jesus would lead kind of influences how I think I lead too, Sarah, okay, so here's a real question for you. True confessions, right? All right. So when you think of Jesus, and don't come up with the right answer, just be honest. When you think of Jesus, what comes to mind first? What's his characteristics like? Who is he like? Or who is he rather? What's he like?
Like straight up appearances or just like his character?
Yeah, more of his character, I guess. I mean, you could say he has a blue sash and a blonde beard if you think that's what he looked like, but I'm thinking more about his his characteristics?
That's a great question. This is hard for me because I've never have been that person to like doubt who Jesus is, if that makes sense. Like there was never a moment in my life where I'm like, that's a fake person, like everything that like scripture says about Jesus, I'm just like, yeah, that's true. Like I was not blessed with that gift. I'm questioning you. So I think that one's a little tough for me. But most times when I envision Jesus, like I envision this like soft-spoken person. I am very like, I'm competitive, but outside from that, I am a very like, I love doing things. I like going, like, give me direction and I'll move the ball. Like, let's go, let's move forward. And a lot of the times I feel like when I envision Jesus, I just envision this like very like wise, mellow person that's like, Sarah, no, like, wait, come back. You didn't get all the info. Like, I just envision this like soft guiding voice. Who's just like, it's okay, you messed up, but just come back and I'll show you the way. Like, I don't know why. That's just the first thing that I think about. Because I mean, I'm in my head and I know like, oh, I did this wrong. Oh, I didn't look to the Lord in this part. Like, I know all those things throughout the day. So at the end of the day, like, I don't envision this like person that's like, and you messed up, which is uncommon, because I think most of my friends are like, oh, God's just looking at me like whatever. But I think when I look to Jesus, I'm like, you're the one who understands me the most, because you know where my heart is at. And it's just this like soft, like, just come back kind of voice. I don't think that's the right answer, but I think it is a right answer because that's how I view God. So
I don't think there's a right answer. I like, in the sense of, it was your opinion. So
yeah.
It's your journey. And I think along with that, I feel like you see that characteristic in that story, even of, with the disciples, it's come away and get some rest.
Yeah.
And in the next story, you see this leader from Jesus who's organizing people into, groups and telling the disciples and giving them direct, like, instructions of what to do. And yet right before that, he's caring for their souls. He's going, you guys are tired. Like, ministry's been heavy in the last season. You're hungry. Let's get away and get some rest, right? And I think both of those show up, instantly, from the draw alongside, quiet voice. Hey, you guys, come on. You're tired, and it's okay. So, yeah.
I think just the biggest characteristic of like Jesus that I got out of the message this past weekend was just how present Jesus is in every moment. Like,
good.
When he's with the crowd, I think you referred to it as like a garden. Well, what'd you say, a garden box? Is that what you said?
The literal word that we translate in groups is garden bed.
Garden bed. Cool. Well, I envision Jesus just being like super present, like with his disciples and with that crowd. And like Jesus being with that crowd, like knowing that they have no direction, they're kind of going wayward. It's just amazing. Like, Jesus he himself is being present, but he's calling his disciples to be present, because he knows that like when that crowd, like when they get direction, like kind of like a seed, there's going to be a breaking, because they could have thought that they were right, totally on their agenda, but they probably were going a little bit this way. And I think Jesus is calling us to be present before, during, and then after, because that whole like, oh, I realized I'm wrong comes with a whole nother thing. And I think being present in each station that you're at is super important.
Yeah. I think for me, literally one of the most important things about me is what I think God is like. Like, it just colors everything, and what I think Jesus is like specifically, right? So back to your, Sarah, like you're saying, you have this, picture of Jesus, like your mental image of who Jesus is this person who's not, condemning mistakes, but he's encouraging you and loving you, like that. You carry that forward with you everywhere. And it's amazing. I think a lot like my growing up experience, with a little, I kind of jokingly call myself a recovering Baptist. Baptists don't like it, don't mean anything by it other than just being very like legalism was a big part of how we defined our faith, like by rules we kept. And so the God that we loved and served was a God who kept score. He was more the God who holds you accountable, or the God who kind of judges everything you do. And that is true about him. Like that's completely biblical, but like we see in the story from Jesus, what moves him is compassion. Like if God had to put, I think if God had to put one thing on his business card, here's who I am, it would be compassion. And then that moves him, in this story. He sees people that are hungry. He sees them, it says they're like, people, they're like sheep without a shepherd. He sees that and it moves him to action. And I think the more I understand that's how God sees me too, like this is how Jesus sees me, with compassion. He sees me needing leadership. Like I'm a sheep without a shepherd. Like I need the direction. So he's not going to shy away from that. But it's compassion that moves him, like my inner voice, like my inner critic, shame that I feel, fear that I have, like that starts to melt away when I know. And then I can turn to other people and respond the same way. So I can see my Facebook feed and I can see the people like that don't vote like I would vote, and I'm not moved to anger. Maybe I'm moved to compassion instead. Or I see people who don't speak my language or value what I value, or don't treat me well, take advantage of me, and I can be moved to compassion, which moves me closer to that living like Jesus, like my apprentice.
Is it Exodus when God's describing himself to Moses? Like he actually, his very first characteristic that he puts on himself is compassionate.
Oh, I love that story. Yeah, it's the one where Moses asked to see God. Remember that? And they're up on the mountain and God's like, you can't take seeing me like straight up. But he's like, I'm going to hide you in the rock. I'm going to cover you and I'm going to pass by. And then God tells him, it's the first time in scripture where God actually gives us his name, like his full name, like here's who I am. And he says, I'm the Lord God, compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in loving kindness, then holding people accountable, visiting the sins of the fathers down to the third and fourth generation. So there's this accountability, but man, he's leading with compassion and grace. And I think you see God's heart in Jesus in this feeding, right? John, you mentioned that compassion and grace. Like if I were Jesus, because I'm far from, who I need to be, I would be so tired. I'd be burned out. I'd be hungry. I'd be hangry, right? And I'd be like, these people are following me around and they were dumb enough to not even plan to bring food. What's wrong with, what I mean? Like, what's wrong with these people? Like, get them out of here. And Jesus instead, I love it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, John, but he gives his disciples like this impossible assignment. Hey, let's get these guys some food. And there's like literally, it says there's 5,000 men. I think Matthew, says there's a lot more people. You're talking at least 10,000, right? Probably 20,000. And Jesus is like, hey, you 12 guys, why don't you round up some food? Like, what? Right?
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
What's that all about?
Well, and I think what's interesting too, like you talk about the compassion coming from a moment where, so the desolate place word was huge to me in studying, because the desolate place it's void of people. Like it's not desolate in the sense of nothing can grow there or anything, because obviously there's green grass there, and that's stated in the point of them going to this place is to get away from people, and for it to be that not only the opposite, but like you're saying, 20,000 people, like
That's my
Okay,
nightmare
that's,
scenario.
that's not even close to the opposite. That's like way off the other end, you know. And you look at that and you go, he saw the people and he saw the needs. And I think it was a while ago, the connection between compassion and listening. That the solitude and the listening actually opens up compassion. And what you're listening for is the needs of the human soul. And when you catch the needs of the human soul, that's what grows this deep well of inside of you. But it comes down to, like you're saying, where you actually see people. And I think that the lesson for the disciples was, or one of them, I think there's a lot in there, but one of them was all they could see is what they didn't have. And I think going back to the character of God that we were talking about, like instead of seeing that they have the Messiah, the one who is healing people left and right the entire time, the one who's defying everything that's impossible into possibilities, like they totally miss that they have Jesus and only see the lack of, well, we don't have any money, and even if we did, it would take half a year's wages or whatever it was. You know, like, I mean, it's just like everything all they can focus on is what they don't have in this mountain in front of them, instead of actually catching, but wait, you're God with skin on. Like, what could you do? So yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and for the disciples, Jesus put it on them, like the crowd's needs became the disciples' problem. Like he's like, hey, you guys have to figure this out.
Yep.
And like you said, the irony, sad, funny bit is where they're like, literally they have God on earth. And they're like, I don't know, like they're doing math in their head, like how can we make this work? It's just, but how, I mean, man, aren't we the same? You know what I mean? It's like we have needs. Like there are things I need, right? Food, shelter, I need love, I need to not be alone, and man, why, how rarely we take those needs to Jesus. We try to do some kind of impossible math calculation to work out how we're going to meet those needs, and I feel like that's a big part of my discipleship journey, my apprenticeship journey, has been getting real with what my needs are, and then actually taking those to Jesus. Go, okay, not fronting like, Lord, I need more time so I can have my devotions with you. Like, don't, okay, it's the deeper things, right? Where I really feel like if I don't get this, I'm not going to make it, and putting those in Jesus' hands. I don't know. Does that resonate with you at all, Sarah?
Yes, I think so. No, I think that totally resonates with like all of us. I think most times, like, I know I have my needs, like, but because my brain isn't even like on my, like, most times it's not focused on me. I'm just like, oh yeah, I need this, God. I totally forgot to like come to you. Like, it's like becomes that last resort of like, oh, I need to come to the Lord and just like be honest with what I need. And a lot of the times, like, I don't even know what I need, but once I realize like I need that thing, I'm just like, oh God, like I had no idea that was in there. Like I need like more strength, or just more of you to just come in and just like help me process through this.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think as long as we keep ourselves in the category of the crowd and not the Pharisees, Jesus has so much compassion for us, and he recognizes those needs, and it moves him to our aid. It moves him to help us. And I'm guilty of just literally my last resort, if I'm just honest, so often is Jesus, right? Like I have a problem in front of me, and then I start doing math, like, okay, well, if we all worked for, several years, we could save up enough money to buy food for the 20,000. It's like, no, you guys can't work. That'd take you years to do that, right? Like I'm in that category, and Jesus is just sitting there like, okay, well, let me know, go scrounge up what you have and bring it to me, like the disciples did.
Sometimes I think like we go to Jesus as our last resort because like there's like a disbelief in like ourselves, or it's like, oh, I need this. No, I'm not going to pray about it. Like, that's not like, God isn't going to give me that. That's not a need. That's maybe a want, and it's probably a need. And we just don't even know it. And it's like, every time that comes up, we like train ourselves like, oh, I need this. I'm not going to pray or ask or anything. I'm just going to go figure this out. I'm going to go work with my budget. I'm going to go change this time slot or whatever. There's just a lot of like, I think disbelief in our own heart that like God would even want to be there in our needs, you know? So.
Oh yeah. And that's one of those. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say, and like when we, speaking of character of God and who he is and all that, when we put God in God the Father category, or not even category, reality of who he is, and get that picture. Like when I think of my girls who are now at college, if they had a need that I could help meet, but they didn't want to show weakness, or they didn't want to admit it, or didn't want to bother, like I would feel, you know what I mean? Like it's like,
bad. Like you didn't trust me.
I want to be asked, you know?
Yeah.
Like I delight in being able to be a part of their life in that way.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, when you envision God that way, that's where I get hung up. I don't often project that to God the Father who, well, you got the whole world. Like, you don't need to bother with this. Like, you know, and for me, that cuts when my kids go, yeah, Dad, you're busy. That's the worst for me. I'm like, man, because the reality of my heart is never going to be too busy for you. Right. And I think with God, when we can get to that space where we remember he's Father and he's good and he longs to walk with us in life. And I think it changes a lot.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And that's where, I mean, God in that role of a father, right? He's there to pick up and move the things that are too big for us to move, right? I mean, you know, dads pick up the heavy things. They answer the hard questions. They puzzle over the homework. You know, we do these things for our kids that they're too little. They can't do it. That's what we're here for, you know? And that's one of those, I love in this story about Jesus, the whole math part of it. And John, you brought this out on Sunday a little bit. Just, I think you called your sermon something like, you know, bad at math or bad math. I think bad math, which I immediately like, oh, I'm interested because that's me. But you know, there's how the disciples handled the numbers and then how Jesus did it. So the disciples go right into calculation, like very realistic, and they quickly figure out like this problem's too big to solve, right? And then you have Jesus and his math, which is like, you know, 5 loaves plus 2 fish equal 12 baskets. And they're like, that's not even real. Like, that's not math. Like, there's no way this checks out. And so I feel like that's where, you know, if we can understand in our own apprenticeship, like when the math doesn't check out, like I need something that I can no way get on my own, that's the time to turn it over and put our little fish and loaves in Jesus' hands, right? Let him do Jesus math on it when my math doesn't check out, you know?
But how many times do you think he forces us to that place so that we walk by faith? You know what I mean? Like we're so self-sufficient that if, like for real, for me, teaching is one of those moments. I am so completely aware that every time I step on any stage, whether it be here, whether it be, you know, 10 people in a room, like I don't have this. Like if the Holy Spirit doesn't show up, this is a mess, you know? And I think those moments for me have become such beautiful faith moments of, God, whatever you want this to be, like it's only going to happen. Anything is only going to happen if you show up, because clearly my math is bad. So, but you know, like that, I think that's, without those moments, I think we become so self-sufficient that it's not until the massive COVID shows up on our door. You know what I mean? I think we're supposed to, in all these little moments, step in and go, gosh, I don't have it. And yet that's a good thing because it forces me to live by faith.
Oh yeah, I think you're 100% right. Sarah?
I was gonna say I have those moments, but more specifically, like with my family. You know, like my own immediate family. They don't live here. My grandparents raised me, but I'm starting to step into that role of like, oh, I'm leading the household. They're far away, but I'm leading the household. And a lot of the times, I'm like, God, I feel so alone. Like I'm the daughter. Like, this is so strange for me to step into this role of like, oh, now I have to think about, okay, what is their long-term health going to look like? You know, what is my brother's future going to look like? Like, I've stepped into this completely different role where I'm not even a parent. And I'm just like, oh, God, I need your help. I need your wisdom. I need your guidance. I feel alone. Like, I need you to give me community. Like, it's those moments are like the moments where it's like, boom, in the face. Like, here you go. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and that's those moments where you don't necessarily want to walk in with that kind of faith over fear swagger, right? Like where you're like, no, I ain't scared. I'm not afraid. I've got this. It's like, no, you don't. And that's okay, right? Like, let's not lie to ourselves, right? Hey, I don't have this.
Yeah.
This is too big for me. I'm not equipped for this. The math doesn't check out, right? And it's okay to not have, it's not a faith over fear as much as it is like a faith through fear, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where he wants us to meet us, Sarah.
Yeah, I think like when we're in those moments, I think oftentimes like the point like that point where we break oftentimes offers the most like relief, because that's the point where we have to be taken to in order to realize like, I don't got this and it's okay because God's got me. Like, and we're like, why did it take this long for me to understand this point that God was trying to, and so that's where the grace comes in.
Yep. Grace, compassion, right?
Thanks. Yeah.
So John, we got to wrap this thing up, man. It's been a good conversation with you and Sarah. I feel like we literally could just keep this rolling for about another 30 minutes. Anything from Sunday or just that's on your heart as we wrap this up that you'd like folks to carry with us through the week, being that apprentice of Jesus?
Yeah, I think it probably from this conversation, the idea of listening to the people that God puts in front of you and listening with the intent of, God, what are the needs that are present that you're asking me to be a part of meeting? And just being faithful to it, whatever that looks like. And I think that's the developing of the apprenticeship, right? That's the putting into practice. Okay, I saw this in Jesus. How can I put this into practice? Okay, Lord, give me ears to hear, and give me ears to hear the needs that are there, and then give me the heart to respond in compassion. So I think for any of us, if there's a moment this week where that actually happens, celebrating the apprenticeship to Jesus in that. And I think the big one right now, honestly, like, and it's only going to grow over the next month, is just grace. You guys, we see grace in Jesus. We have to extend that probably more in these days than ever before. Grace to listen and not just cancel people out. So, yeah, I don't know, man.
Good word. Good word. On that, we're going to hang it on that note. Sarah, so great to have you with us. Sorry about the ukulele intro.
No, every time I see you, that's the only way I will talk to you now.
She wants that walk-up music.
I got to get that walk-up music for you. You're great.
Ba-da-bop.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for being brave, jumping on. John, appreciate you as always, my friend.
Absolutely. Love it.
We wrap this thing up. Folks, we go back to you. Great words to ponder, think about this idea of being Jesus' apprentice. What's he like? How he loves. And then what am I like? How do I love? And then closing that gap, watching how Jesus lived, following in his footsteps. And this conversation centering on that idea of compassion and grace, moved to compassion and grace, just like God and Jesus moved to compassion and grace by what we need, right? been a great conversation. Love you so much. And we are here as a church family. We want to help you take those steps to follow in Jesus' footsteps, whether it be getting involved with a group, whether it be connecting with us online, looking for us on Facebook, Instagram, subscribing to YouTube right here, looking at past sermons any way we can, or even just reaching out in person on Sunday. We've got our in-person gatherings as well as online. However we can do it, we're here for you. We're here to help you find Jesus, connect with him, follow him. So just a reminder again, we have morning coffee tomorrow at 10 o'clock right here on YouTube. In-person services 8:30 and 10:30 on our Preston campus. We've also got services online, live at 10:30 and 6, and available anytime right here on YouTube. All right, that's it for midweek. Much love to you. I will see you. I think I'm up for morning coffee tomorrow, so I may see you tomorrow. And if not, I'll see you Sunday. Have a great week. Bye for now. Much love.